Hey there, glad you could make it. You know, sometimes I wonder where you all are right now. I see someone from California listening at 3 in the afternoon, and I just have to wonder, are you taking a nap because we're about to head to medieval Europe? And you're going to want to be wide awake for this. First, though, get comfortable. I'm serious. Take a second. Adjust whatever you need to adjust. You're not going to want to move an inch once we start. Between the years 1100 and 1400, millions of people managed to survive some truly brutal European winters. They did it without any electricity, without central heating, or any of the modern tools we take for granted. They were up against frostbite, starvation, and this endless, crushing darkness, and yet somehow they endured. Their secret wasn't about brute force, it was an ingenuity so subtle and so smart that we've completely forgotten about it today. This is what medieval survival really looked like, and it might just be something that could save your life when our modern systems fail. The cold is what hits you first. Your eyes snap open to complete darkness, and you feel that bone-deep chill that tells you the fire died out hours ago. You can see frost glittering on the inside of your wooden shutters. Your breath hangs like a little cloud in the air right above you. This is nothing like your heated bedroom. There's no thermostat you can just bump up a few degrees, no electric blanket to flip on. You're just wrapped in a scratchy wool blanket that smells a little like smoke and sheep. The straw mattress underneath you crackles and rustles as you shift. Your joints are aching from the cold, and your fingers feel stiff as you try to pull the blanket tighter around you. You're going to be late, Elric. That's your brother's voice, coming from somewhere in the darkness. Somehow he always manages to wake up before you do. You just groan as you swing your legs over the side of your sleeping platform. The wooden floor feels like a sheet of ice against your bare feet. The keeper's already heading up the hill, your brother says, and he's already pulling on his own worn-out leather boots. Not today of all days. Hold up, you mumble back, your voice still thick with sleep. I'm coming. You get dressed as fast as you can in the dark. A woolen undertunic, a rough linen shirt, your leather jerkin, and thick woolen hose that you have to tie at the waist. There's no time to eat, no time to wash. The keeper doesn't wait for anyone, not even for his new apprentice. You stumble out the door right behind your brother into the pre-dawn gloom of the village. The sky is just light enough that you can make out the outlines of the thatched rooftops against the last of the stars. The air smells like wood smoke, damp earth, and that sour tang from the midden heap over at the edge of the village. There he goes, your brother whispers, pointing to a hunched-over figure moving steadily up the path toward the forest. The old man doesn't even use a torch. He doesn't need one. He's walked this same path every single morning for 40 years. You break into a jog, your feet crunching on the frozen ground. Your empty stomach is already starting to protest. It's going to be a long day of hungry work ahead. Master Wulfik, you call out, your voice hushed but urgent. Wait for me. The old man doesn't slow down. He doesn't even turn. He just keeps that same steady pace up the hill. His dark silhouette is carrying something in each hand. There's a leather pouch slung over one shoulder and a wooden box tucked under his arm. You finally catch up to him, breathing hard, your lungs burning from the cold air. You're late, the old man says simply. There's no anger in his voice, it's just a statement of fact. Sorry, master. The fire went out, he repeats, cutting you off. And why did that happen? You swallow hard. It's day one as the keeper's apprentice, and you've already failed the most basic test there is, because I didn't bank it properly before I went to sleep. The old man finally stops, turning to look at you. In the dim light, his face is a maze of wrinkles, but his eyes are incredibly sharp. And what did that cost you this morning? You're about to say something flippant, but you stop yourself. The old man isn't asking about convenience. It cost warmth and time and the energy to restart it. It cost wood that we could have saved. He just nods, seeming satisfied with your answer. Fire is life, boy. Let it die, and a little piece of you dies right along with it. And so begins your first real lesson from the Keeper of Embers. Wait, you're probably thinking, the Keeper of Embers, what kind of a job is that? Okay, so picture this. In a world with no matches, no lighters, without even reliable flint and steel in every single household, fire wasn't just important, it was absolutely everything. And trying to start a fire from scratch, well, that could take hours of hard work, hours you just didn't have, when you were freezing, when your food needed to be cooked, when the darkness was closing in. So, medieval people didn't mess around with fire. They developed something that was far more reliable. It was a system so effective, so ingenious, that most modern survivalists haven't even figured it out yet. You follow Master Wolfic as he reaches the crest of the hill, coming to a small stone hut that serves as his workshop. It's one of the only stone buildings in the entire village, aside from the church. That's how important this little place is. First task of every morning, he says, pushing open the heavy wooden door. The smell hits you right away. It's a complex mix of herbs, smoke, dried clay, and something earthy you can't quite place. We check the bundles. Inside, you can just make out a faint red glow coming from what looks like dozens of small clay pots. They're all arranged on stone shelves, each one about the size of your palm, and they're sealed with wax around these little wooden plugs. Master Wolfic moves to the nearest shelf and carefully picks up one of the pots. With these practiced, nimble fingers, he pries out the wooden plug and peers inside. A gentle red glow illuminates his weathered face. Still strong, he murmurs, mostly to himself. He replaces the plug carefully, and then he marks a small notch in the clay with his thumbnail. And that's when you notice that every pot has a series of these little notches, some with many, some with just a few. What are the marks for, you ask? Days, he says, simply. This one's been alive for 36 days now. 36 days, you can't hide your disbelief. The fire's been burning inside that little pot for over a month. The old man just chuckles, not fire, boy Ember. And this isn't even close to the record. He points to a larger pot over in the corner, one that's obviously treated with a special reverence. That one's been smouldering for nearly 2 months. You just stare at this unassuming little clay pot. How is that even possible? Sit, he says, gesturing to a small wooden stool. I'll show you the secret that keeps our village alive all through the winter. Master Wolfic moves over to his workbench, and he selects a hollow reed stem. It's about the thickness of your thumb and the length of your forearm. The fire bundle, he explains, is the most valuable thing a traveler can possibly carry. It's more important than gold, more crucial than any weapon. He holds up the reed. Elder works best, though a reed will do in a pinch. The real secret is in the preparation. You watch as he takes a small ember from one of his pots using a little metal tool. The ember glows bright orange in the dim room. First, you need perfect embers, not too hot, not too cool. He carefully places the glowing ember inside the hollow reed. Then you seal both ends. You can use clay, wax, even mud. In an emergency, you just have to leave enough air holes to keep it alive. He shows you how he seals one end with clay, poking a tiny little pinhole in it with a needle, and then he does the exact same thing to the other end. Too much air, and it burns itself out in a few hours. Too little, and it suffocates and dies, but if you get it just right, he holds up the finished bundle. And you have fire that can travel with you for days, and sometimes even weeks. That's what's in all these pots, you ask, looking around the room with a whole new understanding. Different types, different materials, different purposes, he says, pointing to various shelves. Those are for travellers who are heading north, those are for the shepherds up in the hills, and those are for the charcoal burners. He gives a slight smile. Everyone needs fire, but not everyone can keep it alive. That's our job. But why not just use flint and steel, you ask? It seems so much simpler than this elaborate system. Master Wulfik's expression suddenly darkens. Let me tell you about last winter, he says quietly. We had 3 weeks of solid rain. Everything was just soaked through. The Oswald family, they tried for 2 days to strike a spark that would catch. Their youngest little girl, she couldn't have been more than 4 years old. She died of cold before they finally managed it. The room feels colder all of a sudden as his words sink in. With a fire bundle, he continues, they would have had a flame in seconds. It doesn't matter what the weather is like. It doesn't matter how wet the wood is. The ember inside stays protected. It stays dry. He places a hand on your shoulder. We don't just keep fire, boy. We keep people alive. Outside, the sun is finally breaking over the horizon, casting long shadows through the workshop's small window. The travellers will be coming soon, Master Wulfik says, moving toward a large wooden chest in the corner. They'll need fresh bundles for their journeys. He opens the chest, and inside are dozens of leather pouches and small wooden containers. Each traveller gets what they need, based on where they're going. A short trip means a small bundle. A long journey means multiple bundles to rotate. You move over to help him, still marvelling at the simple elegance of this system. There are no batteries that can run out, no fuel you have to carry, just the patient preservation of a flame that already exists. Some of them have special designs, the old man explains, showing you a bundle with a clever little sliding cover over its air hole. This one lets you control the burn rate. You can open it up more when you need it hotter, or close it down to conserve it. And what about these, you ask, pointing to some strange, dried mushrooms in a ceramic bowl. Ah, Master Wulfik's face just lights up. The real treasure, that's tinder fungus, and it's only found on certain birch trees. These can smoulder for extraordinary amounts of time. He picks one up reverently. The record in this village is one of those that kept an ember alive for over 2 months. As the morning goes on, you help Master Wulfik prepare bundles for the day's travellers. Each one is carefully crafted, each ember is selected for its quality, and each container is designed for its specific purpose. Villagers start to arrive as the sun climbs higher in the sky. There's a merchant heading to the next town, a shepherd taking his flock up to the higher pastures, a family travelling to visit their relatives. The merchant is the first to approach, a heavy-set man with a face reddened by the wind and sun. Ah, Wulfik, I'll need 3 for the journey to Eastwick, he says, already reaching for his coin purse. 3? Master Wulfik raises an eyebrow. It's only a 2-day journey, Edwin. The merchant shifts uncomfortably. The road's been wet, and after what happened to the Miller family... He doesn't finish the sentence. He doesn't have to. 3 it is. Master Wulfik nods, selecting the right bundles for him. 1 for your cart, 1 for your night fire, and 1 for an emergency. Rotate them just like I showed you. The merchant hands over several coins, which is more than you'd expect for something as simple as fire. Your new apprentice? The merchant asks, nodding over at you. Started today, Master Wulfik says, still learning the value of what we do. The merchant fixes you with this serious stare. Last winter, I was caught in a snowstorm near Westbrook. My horse went lame, night was falling, and the temperature was dropping fast. Without my fire bundle, you'd be looking at a frozen corpse right now instead of my ugly face. He pats the leather pouch Master Wulfik just handed him. These are worth more than gold. Throughout the morning, more and more villagers come for their fire bundles. Every single one of them has a story. Each one of them treats these humble little containers with a surprising reverence. In the monastery, Master Wulfik tells you during a quiet moment, they maintain eternal flames. It's a fire that has burned continuously for generations, never once extinguished, just passed from one bundle to another in an unbroken chain that stretches back hundreds of years. You're just struck by the thought of it, the same flame, burning for centuries, an ancestral fire, linking the past to the present. Tonight, Master Wulfik says, as the day starts to draw to a close, you'll learn how to prepare the perfect ember. Not too hot, not too cool. The soul of the bundle. As you help him close up the workshop, you realize something has fundamentally shifted in how you see the world. Fire isn't just something that exists when you need it and disappears when you don't. It's a living resource, a companion that has to be nurtured and protected and respected. One last thing before you go, Master Wulfik says, reaching into his own personal pouch. He pulls out a small wooden container that's beautifully carved with symbols you don't recognize. He hands it to you. Inside is a perfectly prepared fire bundle, your first. Never let your home fire go out again, he says quietly. This one will last you a week if you're careful. Just bring it back when it starts to weaken, and I'll show you how to transfer the ember. You clutch the container carefully, feeling its slight warmth against your palm. Inside this humble reed is something precious. It's not just heat or light, but security, survival, life itself. As you walk back down the hill toward your family's hut, the weight of the container in your hand feels significant. You're carrying more than just fire. You're carrying an ancient technology, a forgotten piece of wisdom. Unlike the flashlights with batteries that die, or the lighters that run out of fuel, or the matches that get wet, this simple system creates a closed loop, a perpetual resource that, with just a little care, never needs to be replaced. The genius isn't just that it worked back then, it's that we've forgotten about it now when we might just need it the most. In your warm, comfortable bed tonight, you don't have to worry about your fire going out. Your heating works automatically. Light comes with just the flip of a switch. But somewhere in the back of your mind, a quiet little voice might wonder, what would you do if all those systems failed? How would you keep warm, keep yourself fed? How would you stay alive? The medieval firekeeper had an answer. It was simple, reliable, and tested through generations. Sometimes the oldest solutions are still the best ones. Your family's hut comes into view. Tonight, thanks to your new knowledge, the fire won't go out. Tomorrow, there will be warm embers waiting to greet the dawn. And as the weeks pass, you'll learn that there are more forgotten systems, equally ingenious, equally forgotten, that kept medieval people alive through challenges that we can barely even imagine. The fire bundle. That was just the beginning. The crowing of the rooster wakes you before dawn, though you hardly slept at all. Your mind just kept circling back to what Master Wulfik had shown you. The elegant simplicity of the fire bundles, the deep reverence the villagers treated them with. You check your own bundle, the one the old man gave you, and it's still warm to the touch. You'd followed his instructions, keeping it in a small clay pot near your sleeping mat, wrapped in wool to insulate it. Your brother watches, curious, as you carefully take out the ember and use it to kindle the morning fire. No flint and steel today? He asks, raising an eyebrow. Don't need it, you reply, feeling this unexpected sense of pride as the kindling catches so easily from your preserved ember. Within just a few moments, flames are dancing in the hearth. There was no struggling with damp wood or failed sparks. Just reliable fire, exactly when it was needed. The hedge weavers are coming today, your brother says, warming his hands by the new flames. Father says we're supposed to help. Your stomach tightens a little bit. The hedge weavers, everyone in the village knows how important they are, but their work is mysterious, almost secretive. What about my training with Master Wulfik, you ask? He's the one who asked you to join them. Said something about you needing to understand all the village systems. After a quick breakfast of hard bread and some thin ale, you make your way to the edge of the village. The morning mist is still clinging to the fields, but you can see a group of men and women gathering by the northern boundary. They're carrying an assortment of tools: billhooks, saws, large wooden mallets, and coils of flexible willow branches. Master Wulfik is there among them, talking with an imposing woman whose silver-streaked hair is braided tightly against her head. "Ah, there he is," Wulfik says as you approach. "Elric, this is Mistress Edith, master of the hedge weavers. The woman studies you with these sharp eyes. There's no warmth in her face, just assessment." "You've never helped with the living wall before, have you?" she asks. "No, mistress, but you know its importance. You hesitate. Everyone knows the hedge wall surrounds the village, but beyond that, it keeps the wild animals out." A little ripple of laughter moves through the gathered workers. Mistress Edith doesn't smile. "It does a great deal more than that, boy. Come. Today, you'll learn what truly protects this village, and it's not the Lord's men or their steel." The group moves toward the northern edge of the village, where the massive hedgerow stands like a green fortress wall. You've seen it your entire life, of course, but you've never really looked at it. Now, as you approach it with purpose, you're struck by its sheer size and density. It's easily 15 feet high in some places, and so thick you can't see through it at all. "This section needs maintenance," Mistress Edith explains, pointing to an area where the growth seems particularly wild. "It was last laid 4 years ago." "Laid 4?
Laid, you ask? She hands you a pair of thick leather gloves. Watch first, then you'll help. 2 men approach a young tree that's growing within the hedge. It's a hawthorn with a trunk about as thick as your wrist. Using a billhook, one of the men makes a deep cut into the trunk about 2 feet from the ground. It's not enough to fell the tree, but it's enough to weaken it. The cut has to be precise, Mistress Edith explains. Too deep, and the tree dies. Too shallow, and it won't bend properly.
With the cut made, both men grasp the trunk and slowly, carefully, they bend it until it's horizontal, parallel to the ground. You fully expect it to snap, but that partial cut allows it to bend without breaking completely. "This is hedge laying," she continues. "We partially cut the living trees and bend them horizontally. As they heal, they'll grow both upward and outward, creating a living wall that can't be easily cut down or burned." You just watch in fascination as the men secure the bent tree with wooden stakes. The hawthorn now forms a living barrier, about waist high. "Your turn," Mistress Edith says, pointing to another young tree. Under her watchful eye, you make your cut. It's too shallow at first, and she has you deepen it just slightly. The sensation of bending the living tree is strange. There's a resistance, a tension that feels like the tree is fighting back, until suddenly it just gives way and lays horizontal. "Good," she nods. "Now you understand the basic technique. But this is just the beginning of what the living wall does for us. Throughout the morning, you work right alongside the hedge weavers. It's much harder labor than you expected, and your hands are already starting to blister despite the gloves. But slowly, you begin to see the genius of the system. Notice what we plant where, Mistress Edith says during a brief rest. She points to different sections of the hedge. The hawthorn and blackthorn provide the structure, and their thorns create an impenetrable barrier. And she's right. The thorns on these trees are vicious. Some of them are nearly 2 inches long and as sharp as needles. But look closer. What else do you see woven in among them? You peer into the dense growth, and you start to notice things you'd overlooked before. There are apple and pear trees carefully grafted and woven right into the structure. There are wild plums, hazelnuts, berries of all kinds. The hedge feeds us, you realize out loud. Mistress Edith nods. A well-maintained hedge provides fruit from the spring all the way through autumn. During the famine 3 years ago, these berries kept children from starving. One of the older workers, a man with a heavily lined face, chimes in. My grandfather said that in the great hunger of his youth, half the village survived on hedge fruit when the crops failed. And look here, Mistress Edith says, guiding you to another section. Elder, willow, yarrow, comfrey, all with medicinal properties. So it's a living pharmacy too, you say, really starting to understand. Indeed, the same barrier that keeps wolves and raiders out also provides us with medicine, food, and materials. As the day goes on, you learn how different sections of the hedge serve different purposes. Near the livestock pens, the hedge is particularly dense to prevent predators from reaching the animals. Near the village's main path, there's a carefully disguised opening, a hedge port, they call it, that can be sealed up quickly in times of danger. Only the villagers know about this entrance, Mistress Edith explains. If raiders come, they'll waste their time searching for a way through while we seal this passage. You help as they demonstrate how bundles of blackthorn can be quickly positioned to close the gap, creating a barrier so thorny that no one in their right mind would dare try to push through it. The lords in their stone keeps, they think walls have to be dead to be strong, one of the older women says with a snort. Dead stone, dead wood. Our wall just grows stronger every single year instead of weaker. Some of these hedges are older than the villages they protect, another one adds. There's a section on the east side that stood for over 200 years. It outlived the original village entirely. During the midday meal of bread, cheese, and apples harvested directly from the hedge, Mistress Edith explains the yearly cycle of maintenance. We always work in the winter when the sap is down, she says. If you cut and weave at the wrong time of year, you'll kill the living wall. Each section gets maintained every 4 to 6 years, depending on how fast it grows. How long does it take to establish a new section, you ask? About 7 years before it's truly formidable, but even a 3-year hedge will discourage anyone just casually trespassing. After eating, the work continues. You notice how birds are constantly flitting in and out of the hedge, finches, thrushes, little wrens, and larger fieldfares. The birds are just as important as the thorns, Mistress Edith tells you, following your gaze. They nest in the safety of the hedge, and then they feed on the insects that would otherwise destroy our crops. You've never really thought about it before, but it makes perfect sense. The fields closest to the hedge always seem to have fewer problems with pests. And look there, she says, pointing to a narrow trail along the bottom of the hedge. Fox runs. The hedge provides corridors for wildlife to move between the woodlands. But wouldn't we want to keep foxes away from the village? She actually smiles for the first time. You'd think so, but the foxes hunt the rats and mice that would otherwise overrun our grain stores. Everything has its place, its purpose. As the afternoon wears on, you help collect the cuttings from the hedge maintenance. Absolutely nothing goes to waste. The straight branches are set aside for tool handles. Flexible willow and bramble are coiled up for basket weaving. Even the smallest twigs are gathered up for kindling. In the spring, Mistress Edith explains, we'll harvest specific plants for dyes. Walnuts for brown, elderberries for purple, woad for blue. The more you learn, the more you realize that this simple hedge is actually an intricate multi-purpose system. It's defense, food, medicine, tools, pest control, wildlife corridors, all from a living structure that strengthens itself rather than degrading over time. As the sun begins to set, Mistress Edith leads you to a section of the hedge you haven't worked on yet. This is the oldest part of our wall, she says, with reverence in her voice. It was planted by my great-grandmother's grandmother. That's nearly 8 generations of protection. The hedge here towers nearly 20 feet high, with a trunk system so dense it looks like a solid wall of wood. The thorny exterior looks truly impenetrable. During the Great Raids 50 years ago, 3 villages in this valley were burned to the ground. Ours was the only one spared. The raiders tried for 2 days to breach this wall, but they just couldn't get through. Eventually they gave up and left to find easier targets. You place your hand on the ancient hedge, feeling the rough bark, the sheer solidity of generations of growth. It's like a castle wall, but it's alive. Better than a castle wall, she corrects. This one repairs itself. It grows stronger with time, not weaker, and no lord can tax us for its maintenance. That's when you notice something unusual. There are symbols carved into some of the older trees within the hedge, intricate patterns that clearly have some kind of meaning. What are these marks, you ask? Mistress Edith exchanges a look with the other hedge weavers. After a moment, she seems to make a decision. The hedge doesn't just protect our bodies, Elric, it protects our knowledge. She runs her fingers over one of the symbols. Each major plant in this hedge has a purpose. Some of them have many. These marks remind us of their properties, when to harvest them, and how to prepare them. A living library, you murmur. Exactly. If soldiers come and burn our homes, if the priests confiscate our books, if the lords forbid our practices, the hedge remembers. The knowledge stays safe, hidden in plain sight. As twilight deepens, Master Wulfric rejoins your group. He'd spent the day working on another section of the hedge. Did you learn something today, apprentice? He asks. More than I ever expected, you admit. I've lived with this hedge my entire life, and I never understood what it truly was. He nods, satisfied. The best protections are often the ones that no one even recognizes as protections. Remember that. Before you leave, Mistress Edith hands you a small bundle of hedge cuttings. Plant these along the north side of your family's hut, she instructs. In 3 years, you'll have a small food hedge of your own. In 7, it will protect your home as effectively as any guard. You take the bundle carefully. Its seeds and cuttings of hawthorn, blackthorn, elder, hazel, and crabapple. The beginnings of your own living wall. Thank you, you say, understanding now that this is far more valuable than it appears. One more thing before you go, she says, her voice lowering. The great storm last autumn damaged the eastern section pretty badly. We'll need to replant. Meet us there tomorrow at dawn, and bring a spade if you have one. You just nod, feeling honored to be included in such important work. Walking home in the gathering darkness, your mind is just whirling with everything you've learned. 2 days of your apprenticeship have already revealed 2 interconnected survival systems that your village relies on: fire preservation and living fortifications. And yet neither one would impress a modern observer. There's no complex machinery, no rare materials, just generations of accumulated wisdom working with nature instead of against it. Your brother is waiting for you when you get home, curious about your day with the hedge weavers. Did they show you the hawk's nest? He asks, as you warm yourself by the fire, which is still burning strong thanks to your morning ember. Hawk's nest? No. Why? He grins. There's a pair of hawks that nest in the tallest part of the southern hedge every year. The weavers protect them because they keep the pigeon population in check. And the pigeons would destroy our seeds otherwise. It's just another layer of protection that you hadn't even seen. You wonder how many more there are, how many systems are all working in harmony that you've just never noticed. You place your bundle of hedge cuttings carefully beside your sleeping mat right next to the clay pot that's holding your fire bundle. 2 forms of protection, 2 technologies that are far more sophisticated than they appear. Get some sleep, your brother advises. Dawn comes early for hedge weavers. As you drift off to sleep, you can't help but wonder what other forgotten knowledge is waiting for you tomorrow. The living fence wasn't primitive at all. It was the ultimate expression of working with nature instead of fighting it. Modern fences, they rust, they decay, they require constant maintenance, and eventually they fail completely. But somewhere in England there are hedges still standing that were first laid by medieval hands. Living walls that have outlasted entire empires. That's not primitive technology, that's genius. Dawn brings a thin, cold drizzle. It's the kind that soaks right through your clothes faster than a downpour. You join the hedge weavers at the eastern boundary just as you promised, your hood pulled up against the weather, a spade in your hand. The damage section is worse than you expected. A massive oak had fallen during the autumn storm, crushing nearly 30 feet of the ancient hedgerow. We'll need to start fresh here, Mistress Edith says, surveying the damage with a frown. A full replanting. The work is grueling, clearing away the fallen tree, digging new trenches for saplings, planting them in precise patterns that look chaotic to your untrained eye, but you know they follow Mistress Edith's exacting specifications. Blackthorn on the outside, she instructs, hawthorn behind it, crabapple at 10-foot intervals, an elder at the corners. By midday, your hands are blistered again despite the gloves. Your back is aching from digging in the cold, wet soil. But there's a satisfaction in the work, knowing you're rebuilding a protection that might stand for centuries.
Elric! A voice calls out from the village path. You look up to see your cousin, Leaf, jogging towards you, completely out of breath. Your father sent me, he pants. There's smoke rising from the Ethelwald's barn. All able hands are needed. Your heart just sinks. A fire in the village is everyone's worst nightmare. Thatch burns like tinder, and a single stray spark can destroy years of work in just minutes. Go, Mistress Edith says immediately. We'll continue here.
You drop your tools and run with life back toward the center of the village, fully expecting to see flames and hear shouts of panic. Instead, you find a small crowd gathered calmly around the Aethelwald's barn. There's thick smoke rising from the roof vents, but there's no sense of urgency in people's movements. Your father spots you and waves you over. It's not a fire, he explains, seeing your confused expression. It's smoking day. The Ethelwalds are doing their winter preservation. They just requested some help. Relief washes over you, followed by curiosity. You've eaten smoked meat your entire life, but you've never actually participated in its making. Go on in and see if they need an extra pair of hands, your father suggests. It's good knowledge to have. You approach the heavy wooden door of the barn. When you pull it open, a wall of fragrant smoke just billows out, making your eyes water. Through the haze, you can see Goodwife Aethelwald, a stout woman known for her practical knowledge, directing several people who are hanging items from the barn's upper beams.
Ah, another helper, she says. Noticing you? Good. We need strong arms. Come in, come in. Stepping into the smoke barn is like entering another world. The light filters down through the haze in these strange patterns, creating an otherworldly kind of glow. Your eyes sting at first, but you quickly adjust. What surprises you the most is what's being smoked. You expected to see meat, of course, hams, bacon, maybe some fish. And yes, those are all here, hanging from the highest beams. But there's so much more.
Take these up to the middle racks, Goodwife Ethelwald instructs, handing you several large cloth sacks. Not too high, mind you. That's for the meat only. The sacks are heavy, and they're filled with what feels like grain. You raise your eyebrows in question. Barley, she confirms, and those over there are rye and wheat. The smoke keeps the weevils and the moths away. You climb the wooden ladder up to the middle level of the barn, where several horizontal poles create a series of racks. Following the instructions of another worker, you hang the sacks so they're fully exposed to the smoke, but not directly over the fire pits down below. Why the different heights? You ask the worker, a middle-aged man with a smoke-darkened face. Heat and smoke density, he explains. Meat needs the hottest smoke to kill any rot. Grains need medium heat to drive off the pests. And delicate things like herbs and medicines, they need the gentlest smoke of all. Looking up, you can see the system now. It's a careful arrangement by height. Meat and fish at the very top, where the smoke is hottest. Grain sacks in the middle. And down at your eye level, there are bundles of herbs, flowers, and what look like medicinal plants, all spread out on wide, flat racks. Is this all from just one family? You ask, surprised by the sheer quantity. The man just laughs. No, the whole village uses the Ethelwald smoke barn. They have the best setup, and Goodwife Ethelwald knows the smoke better than anyone. Each family brings their goods on their assigned day. Back on the ground floor, you report to Goodwife Ethelwald for more instructions. What's burning? You ask, noticing there are multiple fire pits, each with different coloured smoke rising from it. She gives you an appraising look. So you have an interest in the smokecraft. I'm learning the village systems, you explain. I'm Master Wolfic's apprentice. Her expression changes to one of respect. Ah, the new keeper in training? Well then, you should understand what we're doing here. She gestures to the different fire pits. Each wood creates a different kind of smoke, with different properties. She points to the pit with the whitest smoke. That's applewood there. It's a sweet smoke, good for pork and fowl, and it gives a golden colour. She moves to the next one. That's oak. It's a strong smoke, best for beef and heartier foods. It preserves the longest. And finally, she points to a pit with a bluish smoke, juniper and pine. It creates a barrier that insects won't cross. We use it mainly for grains and textiles. Or
I didn't know that different woods made different kinds of smoke, you admit. Most don't, she says with a hint of pride. They just throw any old wood on the fire and hope for the best. But there's knowledge in the smoke, old knowledge. For the next hour, you help carry items to their proper locations in the smoke hierarchy. It's exhausting work in the thick air, but it's fascinating. You see things you never expected to be smoked. Bundles of linen cloth, coils of rope, leather hides, even wooden tools.
the ropes and nets need a smoke treatment before the fishing season. Goodwife Ethelwald explains when she catches you looking curiously at a pile of fishing nets. It makes them last twice as long in the water. And the cloth? You ask, nodding toward the bundles of linen. Smoke makes it resist water and moth. It's not as good as a proper oiling, but it helps, especially for work clothes. You're helping hang a rack of leather hides when a fit of coughing just overcomes you. The smoke has finally penetrated your lungs enough to irritate them. Go outside and catch your breath, Goodwife Ethelwald instructs. First-timers always need their breaks. Gratefully, you step outside into the cool air. Your clothes reek of smoke and you can taste it on your tongue, but the fresh air is a relief. Several others are also taking breaks, sitting on logs near the barn entrance. An older man with a beard streaked with grey makes room for you. First smoke day? He asks. You just nod, still catching your breath. I remember my first, he says with a chuckle. I thought my lungs would never recover. You'll get used to it. There's so much more than just meat, you observe. That's what the Southerners don't understand, the man says. They only smoke for flavour. We smoke for survival. He gestures toward the barn. A properly smoked grain sack will stay free of pests for years, not just months. Smoked herbs keep their potency through the harshest winters, and some medicines actually become stronger after they're exposed to the smoke.
How so, you ask, intrigued? Take willow bark, he says. It's good for pain and fever, as you probably know, but if you smoke it with alderwood, its potency doubles. The old herbalist before Mistress Agnes discovered that completely by accident during a smoke day just like this one. Your break ends too quickly and you have to return to the smoke-filled barn. This time, Goodwife Ethelwold leads you to a small side room off the main smoking area. Here, the air is clearer, though it's still pungent with smoke.
An elderly woman is sitting at a table that's covered with small bundles of herbs and plants. This is Mistress Agnes, our herbalist, Goodwife Ethelwold introduces. She requested some help with her medicines. The old woman barely even glances up from her work. She's carefully wrapping herbs in linen before tying them with string. "You're Wulfik's new boy," she says. "It's not a question." "Yes, mistress. Good. Sit. I'll show you something that few people understand." You obey, taking a seat across from her at the small table. Her fingers move with a surprising dexterity for her age, sorting and bundling various dried plants you can't identify. Different herbs need different kinds of smoke, she explains without any preamble. Some need the pine smoke to enhance their properties. Others need the applewood to maintain their gentleness. And others still, they need the oak for longevity. She holds up a bundle of dark leaves. This is fever moss. It's useful for reducing heat in the body, but when it's fresh, it's too strong. It can cause visions, confusion. She sets the bundle in a small basket, separate from the others. This will go to the gentlest smoke, just enough to mellow its effects without reducing its healing power. For the next hour, you help Mistress Agnes prepare her medicinal herbs for smoking. Each one has its own specific needs, its particular placement within the smoke hierarchy. It's precise, almost ritualistic work. The monks claim all healing comes from prayer, she says after a long silence. But they still send for my smoked herbs when sickness comes to their doors. There's a hint of satisfaction in her voice. "Have you always been the village herbalist?" you ask. "For 30 years now," she nods. "I learned from my grandmother, who learned from hers." The smoke knowledge goes back further than anyone can remember. Before the stone church, before the Lord's manor, she hands you a small cloth pouch filled with a pungent mixture. Smoke preservation isn't just for winter stores, boy. It's for knowledge itself. When the big abbey tried to burn our healing books during the last king's reign, we still had our smoked herbs. Our knowledge was kept alive in practice, not just in words. You're struck by how similar that is to what Mistress Edith said about the hedge. It's another form of preservation that protects knowledge just as much as physical resources. By late afternoon, the smoking is at its peak. The barn is glowing with this almost magical light as sunbeams pierce through the thick haze. The 3 fire pits are being carefully tended, different woods added in precise amounts to maintain the correct smoke quality. Goodwife Ethelwold leads you to a corner where several clay containers are sitting, sealed with wax. "The most valuable part," she says, tapping one of the containers, "smoke ash. We collect it from each type of wood separately. The ash from the applewood makes the best soap for delicate things. Oak ash makes lye for the strongest soap. And pine ash mixed with fat creates a salve for winter rashes and chilblains. You just marvel at the completeness of the system. Nothing is wasted. Everything is transformed. How long will all this stay in the smoke, you ask, gesturing to all the hanging food and materials. Depends on what it is, she explains. Herbs might only need a day or 2. The grains about a week. Meats can hang for nearly a month, depending on their size and how long we need them to last. She points to an especially large ham hanging from the highest beam. That one is for the midwinter feast. It'll smoke for 3 weeks and then it'll keep until the heart of winter without spoiling. Your father finds you as the day's light begins to fade. Your eyes are red and your throat is raw from the smoke, but your mind is alive with this new understanding.
"Learned something?" he asks as you walk home together. more than I expected, you admit. I thought smoking was just for flavour. He just laughs. That's what the rich lords think too. They smoke their meat to make it taste better. We smoke to survive the winter. At home, your mother has a bath waiting for you. It's a rare luxury, but it's necessary to remove the smoke smell that has saturated your clothes and your hair. As you scrub, you reflect on the day's lessons.
Modern people with their refrigerators and chemicals might look at a smokehouse as primitive, but the smoke preservation system you witnessed today was anything but simple. It was chemistry and timing, knowledge that had been refined through generations of trial and error. It was alchemy, really, turning the perishable into the permanent, using nothing but carefully controlled smoke. After bathing, you join your family for the evening meal. Your mother has prepared a stew that features smoked venison from last season. It's still perfectly preserved, despite being nearly 5 months old. The Ethelwalds finished their big smoking today, you tell her between bites. Good wife Ethelwald showed me the different woods they use. Did she show you the smoke barrels for the beekeepers? Your mother asks. You shake your head, realizing there was yet another aspect you hadn't even seen. They create a special smoke from certain herbs, she explains. The beekeepers use it to calm the bees during the honey collection, but it has to be exactly the right mixture, or it will harm the hive. It's just another layer of knowledge, another refined technique hidden within what looked so simple from the outside. That night, as you lie in bed, you notice something. Your smoky clothes hanging by the door to air out have attracted no moths. The smell that still clings to them despite your bath is keeping the insects at bay, exactly as good wife Ethelwald had explained. Protection and preservation. Those are the common themes that are emerging from everything you're learning. Your fire bundle sits nearby, still safely preserving its precious ember. Tomorrow you'll need to return it to Master Wulfik to have it refreshed, just as he instructed. You wonder what new knowledge the old man will share with you next. You're 3 days into your apprenticeship, and already the world looks completely different. There are systems and knowledge hidden in plain sight, survival techniques refined over centuries. This isn't primitive technology, it's just a different kind of technology, one that was perfect for its time. And perhaps you think as you drift off towards sleep, still perfect for those times when modern methods fail. Morning comes with a frozen dew and clear skies. It's one of those rare, cloudless days that promises little warmth despite the sunshine. You return your fire bundle to Master Wulfik, as he instructed, finding him already at work in his stone hut at the top of the hill. How was your time with the hedge weavers and at the smoking barn? He asks, carefully examining your bundle. Eye-opening, you admit. I never realized how complex those systems were. He just nods, satisfied with both your answer and the condition of your fire bundle. Most people don't. The best survival methods don't really announce themselves as such. He sets your bundle aside and selects a fresh reed. I'll prepare you a new one. Today, you're to help Mistress Hildegard with her clay work. The potter, you ask, surprised. You know of her, of course. Every village needs someone skilled with clay. But you hadn't expected her work to be part of your apprenticeship. She's more than just a potter, Master Wulfik corrects. Already preparing a fresh ember for your new bundle, she creates what some might call batteries. Batteries? The word is unfamiliar to you. Vessels that store things, he explains. Not just water or grain, but to cold, heat, even preservation itself. Go to her workshop down by the creek. Tell her I sent you to learn about the cooling amphoras. Armed with a fresh fire bundle and a lot of curiosity, you make your way down the hill toward the far side of the village where Mistress Hildegard keeps her workshop. The building is distinctive, larger than most of the village huts, with a tall kiln chimney rising up from the back. Clay pots, jars and vessels of all sizes are surrounding it in various stages of completion. You find the mistress herself, working a large mass of grey clay with these strong, weathered hands. She's older than you expected, with grey streaked hair tied back in a practical knot, but her movements show no sign of age's weakness. Master Wolfik sent me, you explain after introducing yourself, to learn about the cooling amphoras. She studies you for a moment, then nods decisively. About time he sent someone. Knowledge doesn't preserve itself. She gestures to a wooden stool. Sit. Watch first, then you can help. For the next hour, you just observe as she works the clay with this practiced precision. Unlike regular pots that have single walls, she's crafting vessels with double walls, an inner and an outer chamber separated by a small gap. The cooling amphora, she explains while she works, is older than the village, older than the church. My grandmother's grandmother made them the exact same way. Her hands never stop moving as she speaks, expertly forming the complex vessel. The principle is simple, she continues, but the execution has to be precise. She points to the gap between the vessel walls. This space will be filled with wet sand. As the water evaporates through the porous outer clay, it pulls heat away from the inner chamber, creating cooling without any ice. Evaporation, you realize out loud. Exactly. She looks pleased at how quickly you understood. In high summer, when the well water turns tepid by midday, these keep the drinking water cool and sweet. Milk stays fresh for an extra day. Meat doesn't spoil as quickly. She finishes shaping the vessel and sets it carefully on a shelf to dry a little before it's fired. Then she selects another partially completed vessel, this one with a different design. This, she says, is for the opposite purpose. It's a heat battery. The vessel is smaller and denser, with thicker walls and a narrow opening at the top. The clay here is special, she explains, tapping the half-formed vessel. It's mixed with crushed stone and iron filings from the blacksmith's forge. It absorbs heat during the firing, and then it releases it slowly over many hours. Like a stone that stays warm after sitting near the fire, you suggest. Similar, but much more effective. These can be heated up in the morning fire, wrapped in wool, and carried to keep your hands warm all day. The shepherds take them on their winter watches. Travellers tuck them into their bedrolls on cold nights. You just think about the practical genius of such a simple object. There's no need for a constant fire, no danger of sparks or flame, just steady, reliable warmth when and where you need it most. But the most sophisticated, Mistress Hildegard continues, are the preservation chambers. She points to a row of sealed clay vessels on a high shelf. Each one is marked with symbols you don't recognize. These create microclimates for storing seeds, certain medicines, even the starter for our bread. She selects one and hands it to you. It's heavier than it looks, and it's sealed with wax around its lid. This one preserves parsnip seeds, she explains. Normally they lose their vigor after about a year, but if they're properly sealed in a chamber like this, with the right mixture of ash and dried herbs inside, they'll remain viable for 5 years or more. You turn the vessel in your hands, noting the careful craftsmanship. How is this different from just a sealed jar? Everything is in the details, she says, taking it back from you. The porosity of the clay. It has to breathe just enough, but not too much. The mixture inside creates the perfect environment for those specific seeds. Too dry and they die, too damp and they rot or sprout prematurely. She replaces the vessel on its shelf and gestures for you to follow her outside. Behind her workshop stands a structure you hadn't noticed before. It's a small, partially underground room that's built right into the hillside. The thick door bears the same symbols you saw on the preservation vessels. The seed bank, she explains, unlocking the heavy door with a key she wears around her neck. Every village should have one, though few do anymore. Inside, the temperature drops noticeably. The walls are lined with shelves that are holding hundreds of clay vessels, each one carefully labelled. The air smells of earth and herbs and something undefinable. The scent of dormant life, perhaps. Seeds from every crop we grow, Mistress Hildegard says with a quiet pride. Some of them date back 20 years or more. If a disease takes our wheat, if floods wash away our plantings, if war comes and our fields burn, we have what we need to start again. You just stare in amazement at the clay library of life that's surrounding you. And they all stay viable in these vessels? If they're properly prepared, yes. Each type of seed needs its own specific clay mixture, its own specific internal environment. She points to the different shelves. Those are grains, those are root vegetables, and those are herbs and flowers, each with their own vessel design that's been refined over generations. The technological sophistication that's hidden in these humble clay pots just strikes you deeply. This isn't primitive storage, it's precision environmental control using nothing but natural materials. Back in the workshop, Mistress Hildegard puts you to work. First, you help her prepare the clay, mixing it with different materials for different purposes. Then, you assist as she throws pots on her wheel. It's much harder than it looks. Your first attempts at forming the vessels are laughable compared to her precise creations. Don't worry, she chuckles, seeing your frustration. It takes years to master. Today is just for understanding. Midday brings a short break. You share a simple meal of bread and cheese, eating outside in the winter sunshine. Despite the clear sky, the air remains bitterly cold. Perfect weather for demonstrating the cooling amphora's cousin, Mistress Hildegard says, disappearing briefly into her workshop. She returns with what looks like an ordinary clay pitcher, but with some subtle differences you now recognize. Double walls and a slightly porous outer surface. The warming pitcher, she explains, pouring water from a kettle into the vessel. It keeps drinks hot for hours without a fire nearby. She seals it with a cork stopper and hands it to you. Hold it. The pitcher is warm to the touch, but it's not hot, despite the steaming water that's inside. The outer layer stays comfortable to hold, she explains, but the inner chamber maintains its heat for far longer than a normal vessel would. By tonight, that water will still be warm enough for washing. How many different vessels do you make, you ask, marveling at the ingenuity. Dozens of designs, each with a specific purpose. She gestures around the yard at the various pots and jars in their different stages of completion. There's cold storage, heat retention, seed preservation, fermentation control, even moisture regulation for certain crafts. After the meal, she shows you how to prepare the special sand mixture for the cooling amphoras. It's not just any sand, but a specific blend from the riverbed, washed and sorted to just the right consistency, then mixed with certain minerals. Too fine and it blocks the pores and no evaporation occurs, she explains, as you sift the sand through a cloth. Too coarse and the water passes through too quickly, and the cooling effect is weak. You help her fill the gap in a completed cooling amphora with the prepared sand. Then you add water until it's properly saturated. Now we test it, she says. Inside her workshop, she fills 2 identical cups. One with water from her regular pitcher and one with water from a cooling amphora that's been working all morning. She hands both of them to you. Taste the difference. The first cup is just room temperature, a little stale tasting. The second is remarkably cool and fresh, almost as if it was just drawn from the deepest part of the well. That's incredible, you say, honestly. And this works even in the summer, especially in the summer. The hotter the day, the stronger the evaporation, and the better the cooling effect. She takes the cups back. The beauty of it is in its self-regulation. There's no need to adjust it or monitor it. The system responds naturally to the environment. Throughout the afternoon, you learn about more specialized clay vessels. There are fermentation crocks designed to maintain the perfect conditions for transforming cabbage into sauerkraut, and wine vessels that keep the temperature stable during the crucial early stages. There are special containers for storing herbs that would otherwise lose their potency. The most complex are these, Mistress Hildegard says, showing you a set of interlocking vessels, the nested preservation system. It's used for our most valuable medicines. The design is ingenious. There's a small central container for the medicine itself, and that's surrounded by a chamber that's filled with specific herbs and minerals, and all of that is encased in a water-resistant outer vessel. Each layer creates the precise conditions that are needed, she explains. The monastery pays handsomely for these to store their most precious remedies. As the light begins to fade, Mistress Hildegard shows you to a corner of her workshop, where a large clay disc nearly the size of a millstone sits near the kiln. The night warmer, she says, instructing you to help her move it closer to the kiln's outer wall. We'll heat it now while the kiln is still burning hot from today's firing. Tonight, it will radiate warmth for hours after the fire dies. Together you position the massive clay disc where it can absorb heat from the kiln. You notice that it's a special formulation, darker and denser than her other clay works. It's a special clay mixed with ironstone, she explains, seeing your curiosity. It holds heat longer than any other material I've found. The sun has nearly set by the time you finish helping her around the workshop. Mistress Hildegard hands you a small clay vessel, similar to the heat batteries she showed you earlier, but it's sized to fit in a pocket. For your walk home, she says. I heated it in the kiln. It should stay warm for at least 2 hours. You thank her and tuck the warm vessel into your pocket. The heat radiates through your clothing, a surprising comfort against the biting evening cold. Come back in 3 days, she instructs. We'll be firing the cooling amphoras, and I could use an extra pair of hands. Walking home in the gathering darkness, you marvel at how something as simple as clay could be transformed into such sophisticated technology. Your pocket warmer is still radiating heat against your side, a constant comfort in the freezing evening. At home, you find your family huddled near the hearth. Winter nights are always difficult. The fire can't warm the entire hut, and the sleeping areas that are further from the hearth can be bitterly cold. What's that? Your brother asks as you pull the pocket warmer from your clothing. It's a heat battery, you explain, handing it to him. His eyes widen at the warmth that's radiating from the small clay vessel. From the potter? He asks. Mistress Hildegard, you correct. And she's far more than just a potter. Your father examines the heat battery with interest. I've seen travelers with these, but I never knew how they were made. They're just one type, you explain, finding yourself eager to share what you've learned. She makes cooling vessels too, double-walled with wet sand in between, and preservation chambers for seeds and medicines. As you describe the various clay technologies, you realize how many of them you've seen around the village without ever recognizing their significance. The water pitcher that keeps the miller's drinking water cool, even on harvest days. The vessels the herbalist uses for her most valuable medicines. The warming stones the baker tucks into bread deliveries on cold mornings. Hidden technology hiding in plain sight. That night, you place your pocket warmer at the foot of your sleeping mat before you get under the blankets. The gentle heat warms your perpetually cold feet. It's a small luxury you've never experienced before. Such a simple thing, yet so effective. As you drift off to sleep, your mind returns to Mistress Hildegard's seed bank, those humble clay vessels preserving life through the winter, through drought, through disaster, ensuring survival, not just for one season, but for generations to come. Modern storage depends on plastic, on refrigeration, on technology that inevitably fails. But these clay technologies, they could work forever, created from the earth itself. They're not primitive at all. They're just perfectly adapted for their purpose. Or morning arrives with the soft patter of rain against the thatch. The gentle sound would normally lull you back to sleep, but today there's an urgency in the household. Your father's boots have sprung a leak. It's a disaster in the winter, when dry feet can mean the difference between health and sickness. "They're my only good pair," he mutters, examining the cracked leather with a frown. Water from yesterday's work in the fields has seeped through, leaving the leather stiff and damaged. We can't afford new ones before spring. Your mother glances at you over her breakfast porridge. "Didn't you say Master Wolfick was teaching you the village systems? Perhaps he knows someone who could help." You think about the knowledge you've gained over the past few days. Fire keeping, hedge weaving, smoke preservation, clay crafting, but nothing specifically about leather repair. Still, Master Wolfick would know who to ask. The morning rain has settled into a steady drizzle by the time you reach his hut on the hill. You find him sorting through a collection of dried plants, carefully separating the leaves from the stems. "My father's boots are leaking," you explain after greeting him. "We can't afford new ones. Is there someone in the village who could help?" Master Wolfick sets aside his work and considers for a moment. Interesting timing. Goodwife Mart begins her waterproofing work today. The hunting party returns tomorrow, and all their gear will need treatment. He nods decisively. "Go to the tanner's yard. Tell Mart I sent you to learn about friction glaze." The tanner's yard sits downwind of the village, and for good reason. The whole process of turning animal hides into usable leather produces smells that can turn your stomach. But today, as you approach, the usual stench is masked by a different scent. It's sharp, resinous, almost pleasant. You find Goodwife Mart working in an open-sided shed right next to the main tanning area. She's a sturdy woman with muscular arms and hands stained dark from years of working with tanning agents. 3 large pots are bubbling over small fires, each one emitting a different coloured steam and a distinct smell. Several of the village children are helping with simple tasks, stirring the pots, sorting materials, carrying water. Unlike the main tanning work, this seems to be a process that villagers are eager to help with. "Master Wolfick sent me," you explain, approaching her, "to learn about friction glaze. My father's boots are leaking." She looks you up and down, then nods. "Wolfick's new apprentice. I've heard about you." She wipes her hands on her apron. "Boots are easy enough. We'll do them last, after you've learned the process." She gestures to the bubbling pots. "Friction glaze is all about the right ingredients and the proper application. Nothing else works as well for keeping water out while still letting sweat escape." She taps the largest pot. "This is the base. Pine resin we collected last spring when the sap runs strongest. Rendered animal fat from last month's slaughtering, and beeswax from the summer hives. The mixture in the pot has a golden amber colour and gives off this rich, woody scent. Different items need different mixtures," she continues, moving to the second pot. "This one's for the fishing nets and ropes. More resin, less wax, with crushed charcoal added to fight rot in the water. That second mixture is darker, almost black. The third pot contains a paler, more translucent substance. And this is for finer leathers and cloth. It's lighter, with more beeswax for flexibility." A village man approaches with a heavy woolen cloak draped over his arm. "For the hunting trip tomorrow," he explains, handing it to Goodwife Martha. "It needs a fresh treatment. Perfect timing," she tells you. "You can learn on Oswald's cloak." She turns to the man. "Come back before sundown. It should be ready by then." After he leaves, she spreads the cloak out on a large wooden table. Though it's clean, the wool shows signs of wear, with thin spots at the shoulders and elbows. "First, we check for any repairs that are needed," she explains, carefully examining the garment. She finds a small tear near the hem and quickly stitches it up with waxed thread. "Always repair before you waterproof, otherwise the water just finds the weakness." With the cloak prepared, she moves to the first pot and uses a wooden paddle to scoop some of the amber mixture into a shallow bowl. It has cooled enough to form a thick paste. Now, she says, scooping a generous dollop onto her palm, the secret isn't just in the mixture, it's in the application. She hands you a smaller amount. Rub it between your palms until you feel the heat build up. You follow her instructions, working the waxy substance between your hands. At first it's stiff and resistant, but it gradually softens as the friction warms it. Feel that? She asks. The heat is essential. It opens up the fibers and allows the mixture to penetrate, rather than just coat the surface. Once the paste has warmed up enough, she begins applying it to the cloak with these vigorous, circular motions. The pressure of her hands is substantial. This isn't a gentle treatment, it's a forceful working of the material. A lot of people make the mistake of just smearing it on top, she explains, her strong arms never ceasing their motion. That just creates a coating that cracks and peels, and it's useless after a few rains. The mixture has to become part of the material itself. She guides you to help, showing you how to apply the proper pressure, how to work systematically across the fabric. It's hard labor. Within minutes, your arms are aching and sweat is beading on your forehead despite the cool day. This is why it's called friction glaze, she says, noticing your exertion. The friction does just as much of the work as the mixture itself. For nearly an hour, you both work the water-resistant paste into every single inch of the woolen cloak. Your hands develop this peculiar sensitivity. You can actually feel where the mixture has properly penetrated and where it hasn't. Good, Goodwife Marta nods, seeing you adjust your pressure over a particularly dense section of the weave. You're learning to feel the difference. When the cloak is fully treated, she hangs it up near one of the fires. Now it just needs to set. Not too close to the flame, just enough warmth to help it cure properly. How long will the waterproofing last? You ask, flexing your tired fingers. If it's done properly, a full season of hard use, and more, with occasional reapplication to the worn spots. She examines your hands. You've got good strength for the work. That's important for proper penetration. Throughout the day, villagers bring all sorts of items that need waterproofing. Leather bags, work gloves, wool socks, even wooden tool handles that would otherwise swell and crack from all the moisture. Each item receives a specific treatment, different mixtures, different application techniques. A fishing net is dipped in the dark mixture, then worked between strong hands until every fiber is impregnated. Leather work gloves get the lighter paste, applied with special attention to the seams where water might seep through. The hunters and the shepherds, they rely on this protection, Goodwife Marta explains, as you help treat a shepherd's heavy cloak. They spend weeks exposed to the rain and snow. Without proper waterproofing, they'd suffer terribly. Wet clothes in the winter can kill you faster than a lack of food. You think about how different this is from modern rain gear. There's no plastic, no synthetic coatings, and yet it's clearly effective based on the villagers' confidence in the treatment. What makes it better than just oiling the leather, you ask, as you work on a pair of gloves. Oil wears off quickly, it becomes rancid, it attracts insects and mold. She shakes her head dismissively. And it doesn't work at all for wool or linen. The friction glaze forms a bond with the material. It becomes part of it rather than just sitting on top. She points to a cloak that's hanging up to cure, and unlike oil, it lets the body's moisture escape. You won't get soaked from your own sweat being trapped inside. By midday, your arms feel like lead from the constant friction work, but you've developed a rhythm to the process. Each new item presents its own challenges. Dense wool requires more pressure. Thin linen needs a gentler but more persistent treatment. Leather needs special attention at the stress points. A young woman arrives with a small wooden cradle. "It's for my sister's new baby," she explains. The roof leaks near where she sleeps. Good wife Mart selects yet another mixture, this one with a different scent, sweeter and lighter. For the baby things, she explains to you, no pine resin which can irritate delicate skin. We use birch instead with extra beeswax. The application process is the same, persistent friction, until the mixture penetrates the wood. This will protect the cradle from any drips without bringing harsh smells to the baby's bed. As the afternoon progresses, you notice how she adjusts her mixtures for different purposes. Some items get additional ingredients. Crushed charcoal for items that are exposed to strong sunlight, certain herbs mixed in to repel insects, a fine mineral powder for flexibility in extreme cold. The forest provides everything we need, she tells you while she's preparing a fresh batch. Pine for general waterproofing, spruce for things that need flexibility in the cold, birch for items that touch the skin. She points to various containers of collected resins. Each one has its properties, its purpose. You help collect fresh rainwater in buckets that have been placed outside the shed's overhang. This water, she explains, is used to test the waterproofing. It's the best way to know if the treatment worked, she says, taking the now cured shepherd's cloak down from where it was hanging. She pours water over the wool. Instead of soaking in, the droplets bead up beautifully on the surface, just rolling off without leaving a single trace of dampness behind. Perfect, she nods with satisfaction. That will keep Cedric dry even in the worst mountain storms. Late in the day, a grizzled old hunter arrives with an assortment of leather goods. A quiver, knife sheaths, and a weather-beaten hunting bag. The eastern forests are flooded this season, he explains. We'll be wading through swamp for days. I need the best you've got, Mart. She selects ingredients with particular care for his equipment, creating a mixture you haven't seen used yet. It's darker, with a greenish tint. A special blend, she tells you quietly, as the hunter steps outside for a moment. It has added moss extract for disguising human scent. It makes him harder for the animals to detect downwind. The hunter's gear receives the most thorough treatment of the day. Every stitch, every seam, every potential entry point for water gets special attention. You help with the simpler pieces, now confident enough in the technique to work somewhat independently. The difference between dry feet and wet feet can mean life or death on a winter hunt. The hunter tells you seriously as he watches you work. A few years back, a young hunter ignored Mart's advice, didn't get his boots properly treated. He lost 2 toes to frostbite after they got soaked crossing a stream. Finally, late in the day, good wife Mart turns her attention to your father's boots. She examines them critically, noting the worn spots and the cracked areas. These needed treatment months ago, she scolds mildly, but we can still save them. She selects the ingredients carefully, creating a custom mixture just for the damaged leather. First, she has you clean the boots thoroughly with a damp cloth, removing all the dirt and old flaking waterproofing. Now watch closely, she instructs. You'll need to do this for your family in the future. Her technique for the boots is slightly different. She heats the mixture up more before she applies it, and she works it into the leather with even more vigorous friction than before. The pressure is so intense that the leather actually warms up from the effort. For damaged leather, we need a deeper penetration, she explains. The mixture has to reach all the way through the entire thickness to restore its flexibility and waterproofing. It takes nearly an hour to properly treat both boots. By the end, your arms are burning with exhaustion, but the transformation is remarkable. The once stiff, cracked leather has become supple again, with a soft sheen that sheds water instantly when you test it. They'll need a second treatment in a fortnight, good wife Mart says, setting the boots near the fire to cure. But this will keep them waterproof through the worst of the winter, if he's careful. As the day's work winds down, villagers return to collect their treated items. Each person tests their goods with the rainwater, nodding with satisfaction as the droplets just roll off instead of soaking in. You notice how each treated item still maintains its original properties. Wool still feels like wool. Leather still feels like leather. But now with the added resistance to water. Unlike modern plastic coatings that change how a material feels, this treatment enhances it without fundamentally altering it. One last thing before you go, Goodwife Marthe says, as you prepare to leave with your father's boots. She hands you a small clay pot with a tightly fitted lid. Inside is a portion of the waterproofing mixture. For emergency repairs, she explains, if the boots start to leak again before spring, just warm this between your hands and work it into the problem area. It's not as good as a proper treatment, but it will get him through until you can bring them back. You thank her and carefully pack the precious mixture in your bag alongside the boots. Come back when you have time, she adds. There's more to learn about protection from the elements, different mixtures for different seasons. Spring treatments need to repel insects as well as rain. Summer treatments need to allow for more cooling, and winter treatments need more flexibility in the extreme cold. Walking home as the day fades, you marvel at the sophistication of what you've just learned. To an outsider, it might just look like rubbing wax onto fabric. But you now understand the precise combinations, the specific application techniques, and the careful curing process that turns simple ingredients into exceptional protection. Your modern rain jacket, waiting in your closet in 2025, will eventually have its synthetic waterproofing degrade, failing after just a few years. But the friction glaze system you've just learned has worked reliably for centuries, using only materials found in any forest. At home, your father examines his transformed boots with amazement. They're better than when they were new, he admits, bending the now supple leather that was stiff and cracked this morning. That night, the rain pounds harder against the thatch, but your thoughts aren't on leaks or dampness. Instead, you find yourself categorizing the village technologies you've learned so far. Each one perfectly adapted to its purpose, each one sustainable in a way that modern solutions often aren't. The consistent theme emerges again. These weren't primitive stopgaps just waiting for better technology to come along. They were sophisticated systems, refined over generations to work perfectly with the available materials. Not primitive at all, just perfectly adapted. Dawn breaks through thinning clouds, the rain finally spent after 3 long days of steady downpour. Puddles are reflecting the grey-pink sky, and every surface is dripping with lingering moisture. It's perfect timing for your father to test his newly waterproofed boots as he heads out to the fields to assess the flood damage. You're helping your mother hang the sodden bedding to dry near the hearth when Master Wolfic appears at your door. "Good morning," he greets, with an unusual formality. "I've come to ask a favor." Your mother raises her eyebrows. The old keeper rarely makes personal requests. "My sister's son is ill in Oakwick," he explains. "I've prepared medicines, but I can't make the journey myself. My knees just won't handle the forest paths after all this rain." He turns to you. "Would you be willing to deliver them? It's a day's journey there and back if you move quickly." Your mother looks concerned. "Oakwick, with the streams likely flooding and him going alone?"
Not alone, Master Wolfic assures her. He'll travel with Oldwin, the forester. No one knows the woods better, especially after the storms. You've heard of Oldwin. Everyone has. He's a solitary figure who spends more time in the forest than he does in the village. Some people call him strange, but everyone respects his unmatched knowledge of the wilderness. It would be good experience, Master Wolfic adds, for his training. Your mother reluctantly agrees, and within the hour, you're prepared for the journey.
You've got your sturdy boots, treated with Goodwife Marthe's waterproofing, a small pack with some bread and cheese, and Master Wolfic's precious bundle of medicines, all wrapped in oiled cloth. You meet Oldwin at the edge of the village. He's older than you expected, grey-bearded and weathered, with eyes so pale they're almost colourless. He's carrying a simple staff and wearing a cloak that's been patched so extensively it's impossible to tell what its original colour was. "The boy's ready?" he asks Master Wolfic, hardly even glancing at you. He is, and he's willing to learn, if you're willing to teach. Oldwin just grunts non-committally. "We'll see." The rain has stopped, but the forest will be treacherous. The streams will be high, paths will be washed out, and there will be mudslides on the ridge, which is why I asked for you, Master Wolfic says with a surprising deference. No one else would find the way today. Something unspoken seems to pass between the two men. Oldwin nods once, then turns to you. "Keep up. Don't speak unless it's necessary. And listen when I tell you to listen." Without waiting for a response, he turns and strides toward the edge of the forest. You hurry after him, glancing back just once to see Master Wolfic watching you with an unreadable expression. The forest embraces you quickly. The bare winter branches are dripping overhead, and the undergrowth is sodden and heavy. Oldwin moves with a surprising speed for his age, following what seems to be a clear path to you, at least until it just ends, disappearing into a tangle of shrubs. Without any hesitation, Oldwin veers to the left, where you can see no path at all. Yet, as you follow, you realize he's tracking something that's completely invisible to your untrained eyes. An hour into the journey, you come to your first obstacle, a stream that's been transformed into a rushing torrent, its banks overflowing with muddy water. The simple log bridge that normally spans it has been completely swept away. Oldwin stops, and he's not staring at the water, but upstream, his head tilted slightly. His eyes close for a moment, and you realize he's listening intently. After a long moment, he opens his eyes and turns to you. "We need to head upstream. About 200 paces, there's a narrowing where we can cross." "How do you know?" you ask, seeing nothing but unbroken forest in that direction. Instead of answering, he just taps his ear. "Listen. Not to the water here, but to how it sounds further up." You try to focus past the immediate rush of the flooded stream. At first, you don't hear anything different, but then you notice a subtle change in the water's voice. It's a higher pitch, which suggests a faster flow over a narrower channel. "I hear it," you say, surprised. The sound changes. Oldwin just nods. It's the first hint of approval you've seen from him. Water talks if you know how to listen. Every stream has its own voice, and every change in its course creates a different song. You follow him upstream, and sure enough, the flooded stream narrows between two rocky outcroppings, creating a spot where fallen trees have made a natural, if precarious, bridge. "The forest has changed in the storm," Oldwin explains as you carefully cross. "Landmarks have moved, paths have been washed away, but the sounds, those just transform. If you learn to read them, you're never truly lost." The journey continues, and you notice how often Oldwin stops just to listen, his head tilted, his eyes sometimes closed, just absorbing information that you can only guess at. He never consults the position of the sun or looks for moss on the trees, those navigation techniques you've heard about. Instead, he seems to navigate entirely by sound. When you stop for a brief rest and a bite of bread, your curiosity finally overcomes his instruction for silence. How do you know which way to go just by listening? Oldwin considers you for a moment, perhaps deciding if your question even merits an answer. Finally, he speaks. The forest isn't silent. It's constantly telling you where you are if you just train your ears to understand. He gestures around you. Every area has its own sound signature. The birds of this oak grove are different from the ones half a mile east where the pines begin. The wind through the oak leaves creates different tones than it does through the pine needles. You listen, trying to discern what he means. Beyond the dripping water, you can hear bird calls, the rustle of leaves, the distant creaks of branches. Close your eyes, he instructs. Tell me what direction the nearest stream lies. You close your eyes, focusing on sound alone. The trickling of water seems to be coming from multiple directions after all the rain. I'm not sure, you admit. Listen deeper. Not to the rainwater dripping from the leaves, that's everywhere. Listen for the constant flow, the sustained voice of moving water. You try again, filtering out the immediate drips and drops. After a long moment of concentration, you detect it. A steady whisper beneath all the other sounds, and it's coming from your right. That way, you say, pointing. Oldwin nods. Good. About 300 paces in that direction. A small stream flows there year-round. Now what else do you hear? You concentrate even harder. Birds. 4 different calls. And what does that tell you? You hesitate, unsure. The finch you hear doesn't live in the pine forest. The woodpecker works on oaken beech, not on evergreens. And the jay is warning of open ground nearby. He taps his staff on the earth. Bird sounds tell you what kind of trees are surrounding you, even in the fog or the darkness when you can't see them. The lesson continues as you resume walking. Oldwin points out how the sound of your own footsteps changes based on the soil. It's hollow on pine needle beds, solid on clay, damp and muffled on leaf litter. Each sound signature is telling you what you're walking on without you even needing to look down. In the fog or the darkness, he explains, this knowledge means survival. Many travelers have walked in circles because they only trusted their eyes, which can easily deceive. You come to a place where the path splits. Without any hesitation, Oldwin takes the right fork. When you ask him how he chose, his answer surprises you. Listen to the bird sounds ahead on each path. The left fork leads toward a hawk's territory. The smaller birds are silent there. The right path has chattering finches, which means there are no predators nearby. As the day progresses, you start to notice sounds you had previously just ignored. The difference between the wind in various types of trees, how sound carries differently up and downhill, how moving water at various distances creates these distinct acoustic layers in the forest. Midday brings another challenge. A dense fog suddenly rolls in, reducing visibility to just a few feet ahead of you. While you feel a spike of anxiety, Oldwin seems completely untroubled. Now we truly use our ears, he says, almost pleased at the development. Watch this. He cups his hands around his mouth and makes this sharp calling sound. The noise echoes through the fog, bouncing back from unseen obstacles. He listens intently to the returning echoes, then he nods. Open ground 30 paces ahead, and forest again. We're on the right path. You can tell that just from an echo, you ask, amazed. Sound reveals what the eyes cannot. The echo pattern tells me there's a clearing ahead, and then trees again. The quality of the echo reveals the distance and the density. He teaches you how to make your own calls, different sounds for different purposes. A sharp clap works best for detecting nearby objects. A sustained call reveals more distant features. He even shows you how to strike your walking stick against a tree trunk to create a particular resonance that carries well through the fog. You practice as you walk, creating sounds and listening to their return. Gradually, impossibly, you begin to develop this rudimentary sound map of your surroundings, even with the limited visibility. Merchants and pilgrims who traveled regularly developed this skill out of sheer necessity, Oldwin explains. They created mental sound maps of their routes, how different regions should sound in different seasons. The birds of summer create different soundscapes than those of winter. The voice of the wind changes with the density of the leaves on the trees. You think about how different this is from modern navigation with GPS and maps, technologies that fail when the batteries die or the visibility drops. Sound navigation works in darkness, in fog, even with your eyes closed. Late afternoon brings an unexpected revelation. Oldwin stops abruptly, his head tilted in that now familiar listening pose. After a moment, he changes direction, leading you up a gentle slope that you wouldn't have chosen. There's water ahead that wasn't there before the storm, he explains. A new stream that's formed from the rains. We need to adjust our route. How can you possibly hear a stream that small from this distance? You ask, incredulously. Water has a voice that carries further than most sounds, he explains, especially moving water. The human ear, if it's properly trained, can detect streams from over a mile away in quiet conditions. The specific frequencies travel through the forest or the field with minimal degradation. You concentrate, but you can't hear anything beyond the immediate forest sounds. You'll develop the skill with practice, he assures you. Some travelers could even estimate the size of a water source just by its acoustic signature. That's vital knowledge when you're searching for safe drinking water. As you crest the hill, you see that he was right. A new stream has formed in what was likely a dry gully before the storms, and it's cutting directly across the path you would have taken. His hearing alone detected it long before any visual confirmation was possible. A startling moment comes when Oldwin suddenly pulls you back, just as you're about to cross what appears to be solid ground. Listen, he commands. You don't hear anything unusual at first, but then you detect this subtle difference in how the sound resonates from the earth ahead. Bog, Oldwin confirms. The ground is saturated. If you step there, you'll sink to your knees, maybe even deeper. He strikes his staff against the ground, listening to the subtle differences in how the sound resonates through the solid earth versus the waterlogged earth. Following this acoustic guide, he leads you safely around the hazard. Most impressive of all is when he predicts a brief rain shower, nearly an hour before the first drops even fall. The weather speaks before it arrives, he explains. Certain bird calls change. The insect sounds shift. And the way that distant noises carry warns of approaching weather fronts. You focus on the forest sounds, trying to detect what he's hearing. There's a subtle change in the acoustic environment, a dampening of certain tones, a new clarity to others. When the rain does indeed arrive, just as he predicted, you understand it wasn't some mystical foresight, but empirical knowledge based on careful observation. Hunters and shepherds develop this skill to find shelter before the storms hit, Oldwin explains, as you wait out the brief shower under a dense pine. That's critical knowledge when you're exposed on a mountainside or in an open field. By late afternoon, you reach Oakwick. The small settlement appears through the thinning trees, smoke rising from the chimneys in the grey daylight. You deliver Master Wulfik's medicines to his grateful sister, whose son indeed looks terribly ill with a fever. Will you stay the night? She offers. It's late to start back. We have enough daylight, Oldwin answers, before you can even speak. Better to return while the rain holds off. He glances up at the sky in a way that makes you suspect he's hearing something about the approaching weather that you don't yet perceive. The return journey feels different. Though it's the same distance, you travel faster, more confidently. You find yourself listening in a new way, not just hearing the sounds, but interpreting them, creating a mental map of your surroundings through your ears rather than your eyes alone. When darkness falls before you reach the village, Oldwin seems entirely untroubled. While your vision becomes increasingly useless, his navigation remains sure, guided by the acoustic landscape. This is when sound truly becomes your primary sense, he explains, as you walk through the growing darkness. Medieval travelers often journeyed at night when it was necessary, using sound to avoid hazards and to stay on the path. You notice how he periodically creates noise, clapping his hands, singing, striking wood against wood, just to read the returning echoes. The information he gathers prevents you from walking in circles or heading toward dangerous terrain. In your world, he says unexpectedly, people have forgotten how to listen. They walk with artificial sounds pumped directly into their ears, blocking out the very information that would guide them naturally. You're startled by the reference to modern habits. It breaks the historical immersion you've been experiencing. But before you can question it, he continues, the human ear can distinguish over 1,500 different sound variations. It's a capability that's been largely abandoned in your visually dominant modern world. For today's hikers who are so dependent on electronic navigation that can fail, this medieval technique offers a navigation system that works in darkness, in fog, or when the batteries die. There's something odd about his phrasing, almost as if he's quoting something, but the wisdom is undeniable. As the village lights finally appear through the trees, Oldwin stops for a final lesson. Sound navigation wasn't primitive, he says quietly. It was a sophisticated use of a sense that we've allowed to atrophy, precisely when we might need it the most. Master Wulfik is waiting at his hut, and he seems unsurprised by your late return. Did he learn? He asks Oldwin. He listened, the forester responds cryptically. Time will tell if he heard. That night, lying in bed, you find yourself listening to your home in a new way. The subtle creaks of the wooden structure cooling in the night air. The different tones of your family members breathing in their sleep. The way sounds from outside filter through the thatch differently than they do through the wooden walls. It's a world of information you've always had access to, but never truly heard. Your modern headphones are waiting for you back in 2025, ready to block out the acoustic environment completely. But now you wonder what vital information they might be silencing. Natural warnings, direction finding, weather prediction, all available through a sense that we've allowed to diminish. It's not primitive knowledge at all, it's just a different way of knowing. Morning comes with stiff muscles and a lingering tiredness from yesterday's journey. You rise slowly, your legs aching from all those miles on the forest paths. Your mind, though, feels strangely alert, and you find yourself cataloguing the sounds of the early morning in a way you never have before. The gentle pat of your mother's hands kneading bread dough, the specific creak of your father's footsteps on the packed earth floor, the subtle differences in how the wind sounds through the thatch roof compared to how it whistles around the wooden doorframe. It's like an awareness blooming inside you, a new sense, as if Oldwin's teachings awakened something that was dormant within you all this time. You've been summoned to the village circle tonight, your father mentions almost casually, over breakfast. The remembering begins at sunset. The remembering? You ask. The term is unfamiliar. Your parents just exchange glances. We should have told him sooner, your mother murmurs. Told me what? Your father sets down his wooden spoon. It happens every winter solstice. The village gathers to maintain the memory chains. His explanation tells you nothing, but something in his tone suggests an importance far beyond ordinary village gatherings. Master Wulfik will explain, he adds. He sent word that you should join him at midday. He says it's time you understood the final system. The final system. The phrase stirs both curiosity and a strange sense of culmination. You've learned about fire preservation, living hedges, smoke chambers, clay vessels, waterproofing, and sound navigation. What could possibly be left? Master Wulfik isn't at his hilltop hut when you arrive. Instead, you find a simple note. Meet at the Elder Oak at midday. The elder oak stands right at the center of the village, ancient and massive. Generations have gathered beneath its spreading branches for announcements, celebrations, and judgments. When you arrive, Master Wulfik is sitting on a bench beneath it, talking quietly with several of the village elders. Mistress Edith of the Hedgeweavers is there, so is Goodwife Ethelwald from the Smoking Barn, Mistress Hildegard the clay worker, Goodwife Mart of the waterproofing. Even Oldwin the forester has emerged from his woodland solitude for this gathering.
Ah, the apprentice arrives, Master Wulfik says, gesturing for you to come forward. Sit. Today you learn what binds all the other knowledge together. You take a seat on the cold ground, fully aware of the scrutiny from these keepers of village wisdom. There's something solemn hanging in the air, a seriousness you haven't felt in your previous lessons. What do all the systems you've learned have in common? Master Wulfik asks without any preamble. You consider it carefully. They're all methods of survival.
Yes, but deeper. What allows them to exist at all? You think about the fire bundles, the living hedges, the smoke preservation, the clay vessels, the waterproofing techniques, the sound navigation. Each one is sophisticated, each refined over generations. Knowledge, you venture. Specific knowledge that's been passed down over time. Master Wulfik nods, satisfied. And therein lies the most critical system of all. Before books were common, before most people could read or write, how was such complex knowledge preserved? How did we ensure that critical information survived generation after generation? The question just hangs in the air. You've never really considered it before. Tonight, he continues, you'll witness the most sophisticated medieval information technology, the human memory network. A system for preserving vital knowledge without a single page or screen. Throughout the afternoon, the elders take turns explaining the framework of what you'll witness tonight. Their usual practical demeanor has shifted into something more reverent, more ceremonial. All the systems you've learned, Mistress Edith explains, depend on precise knowledge. Exactly how deep to cut a hedge stem, exactly which wood creates which type of smoke, exactly how much pressure to apply when you're waterproofing. If that knowledge is ever lost, the physical skills themselves become completely useless. But writing is vulnerable, adds Goodwife Ethelwald. Books burn, parchment rots, ink fades, and most critical of all, few people can even read them. So our ancestors developed something far more resilient, continues Master Wulfik. They created a living knowledge system using the most reliable storage medium available, distributed human memory. The concept is difficult to grasp at first. Master Wulfik elaborates. Critical survival knowledge wasn't just entrusted to a single elder or expert. It was deliberately spread across the entire community through specialized memory techniques. He gestures to the gathered knowledge keepers. Each of us holds pieces of the whole. Mistress Edith knows which plants to use in each section of the hedge and why. I know the precise preparation of fire bundles for different purposes, and Goodwife Mart knows the exact proportions for waterproofing different materials. But what if someone dies unexpectedly, you ask? Wouldn't their knowledge just die with them? Master Wulfik smiles. That's why we have the knowledge chain. Every critical piece of information is known by at least 3 people from different families and of different ages. No single death, or even several, can break the chain completely. And tonight, adds Mistress Hildegard, we renew those chains, we strengthen them, and we pass the knowledge on to new keepers when it's needed. As the afternoon slides toward evening, villagers begin gathering in the central square. Children are running about excitedly, which is unlike normal village meetings where they're typically excluded. In fact, you notice the children seem to be central to the preparations. They're arranging benches in a specific pattern, placing torches in precise locations. The physical arrangement matters, Master Wulfik explains. Seeing your curiosity, The layout itself contains memory cues, where people sit, the pattern of the torches. It's all designed to trigger specific memories. Mistress Edith adds, your ancestors understood that knowledge isn't just in the mind, it's in the body, in movement, in physical space. By recreating the same conditions every single year, we strengthen the memory pathways. As twilight deepens, the gathering takes on a festival atmosphere. Food is shared, a barrel of special ale is tapped, brewed specifically for this occasion, you're told, with herbs that sharpen the memory and loosen the tongue. When full darkness falls, Master Wulfik stands before the assembled village. The conversations quiet down and a sense of anticipation fills the air. The remembering begins, he announces, as it has since our grandparents' gathered here beneath this very same oak. What follows both surprises and mesmerizes you. The first performance comes from the most unlikely source, 3 children, none of them more than 8 years old. They step forward and begin a singing game, moving in a circle while clapping out a complex rhythm. The song's lyrics at first, they just sound like nonsense until you listen closer and you realize they're actually listing every single edible plant in the forest, in the order they appear in the spring. First comes nettle, bright and stinging. Pick with gloves when birds are singing. Dandelion next appears. Eat the root to calm your fears. The song continues, covering dozens of plants with specific details about their identification, preparation, and medicinal properties, all encoded in a children's rhyming game. The children just learn it as play, whispers Master Wulfik. But encoded within it is knowledge that could prevent starvation if the crops ever fail. Next comes a group of young women who perform a weaving dance. Their movements mimic the process of creating cloth. As they dance, they sing instructions in precise detail. Which plants yield fiber, when to harvest them, how to process each type, which weaves suit which purposes. The dance and the song together form a complete technical manual, all memorized through movement and melody. An elderly couple performs a call and response chant about weather prediction. Cloud patterns, bird behaviors, wind changes that foretell specific weather events. The rhythmic nature of it makes any error immediately obvious, ensuring an accurate transmission. Swallows high, clear sky remains, swallows low, prepare for rains. Oak leaves south, the drought will come. Oak leaves north, get building done. The pattern continues for hours. Different groups perform different pieces of knowledge. Hunting techniques, childcare wisdom, construction methods, disease treatments. Some are solemn recitations, others are lively performances. Some involve the entire village, while others are just for specific family lines. Notice how certain knowledge belongs to certain families, Master Wulfik points out. The smithing knowledge passes through the blacksmith's line, the midwife's wisdom passes through the maternal lines. But other knowledge like edible plants and weather signs that belongs to everyone. You begin to understand the sophistication of the system. It isn't just a random oral tradition, it's a carefully designed information technology that uses rhythm, rhyme, melody, movement, and social structure to preserve and transmit critical knowledge. The system has its own built-in error correction, Mistress Hildegard explains, during a brief pause between performances. If someone makes a mistake in a recitation, the rhythm or the rhyme immediately sounds wrong. Then others can correct it right away before the error has a chance to become permanent. Midway through the evening comes something you recognize. A song about fire preservation. The lyrics detail every single step of creating the fire bundles, maintaining the embers, and transferring the flame. You realize it's exactly what Master Wulfik taught you, but it's encoded in a form that makes it nearly impossible to forget. Tomorrow you'd probably remember about half of what I taught you about firekeeping, Master Wulfik says. But if I taught you that song instead, you'd remember nearly all of it. even years from now. As the night progresses, you notice how certain physical objects are incorporated into the performances. A particular carved stick is passed from hand to hand during the farming knowledge recitations. A special coloured stone is circulated during the hunting songs. Memory anchors, explains Goodwife Aethelwald. The object itself triggers the associated knowledge. Some of the hunters can recall entire migration patterns just by handling their specific memory stone. Most fascinating is how the entire village landscape itself serves as a kind of memory palace. During one recitation about boundaries and land rights, the performers point to specific trees, rocks, and streams. Some are visible from the gathering, others are only in a shared mental imagery. The location of certain markers triggers specific memories, Master Wulfik explains. The ancient oak reminds us of the founding story. The bent willow by the stream marks the boundary with the next village. The landscape literally contains our knowledge. Children participate throughout the entire night. Sometimes they're leading, sometimes they're following, but they're always included. Now you understand why they're being systematically incorporated into the knowledge network through games that embed critical information. A simple counting rhyme might actually be teaching which mushrooms are safe to eat. Mistress Edith tells you that a jumping game preserves the proper sequence for a complex task, like tanning leather or preserving grain. Near midnight comes what Master Wulfik calls the redundancy check. Different groups recite overlapping knowledge but in different forms. The same crucial survival information about treating a winter fever appears in a somber chant from the elders, a lively song from the young adults, and a clapping game from the children. The most vital knowledge is stored in multiple forms, he explains. A song, a story, a physical arrangement, a game. It ensures that even if one transmission method fails, others will preserve the knowledge. You just watch, transfixed, as the village performs its living library. This isn't just simple storytelling around a fire. It's a human-centered information technology that's more resilient than any book or digital storage. Books burn, Master Wulfik says softly, as the night winds down. Servers fail, but distributed knowledge, spread across dozens of minds, can survive almost anything. Plague, war, famine, even deliberate suppression. The official remembering concludes near dawn, though smaller groups continue their recitations and performances as they drift homeward. Master Wulfik gestures for you to remain as the others leave. Tonight, you witnessed. But next year, you'll participate, he tells you solemnly. As my apprentice, you'll become part of the knowledge chain for fire preservation. 3 others already hold that knowledge. You'll be the 4th, providing additional security. The responsibility feels weighty but right. You think of your smartphone waiting for you back in 2025 with its fragile glass screen and a battery that dies without constant charging. All of its stored knowledge is completely useless without electricity, without the complex infrastructure that supports it. Compare that to what you've just witnessed. A resilient, distributed knowledge network that requires no technology beyond the human mind and body, designed to survive almost any catastrophe. What happens if the Lord or the Church forbids these gatherings, you ask, suddenly realizing the political vulnerability? Master Wulfik just smiles. That's another layer of the system's brilliance. The same knowledge exists in multiple forms. If the formal gatherings are banned, the children's games continue, preserving the core information. If the songs are forbidden, the physical memory anchors remain. The system adapts to persecution by hiding in plain sight. In lullabies, in games, in everyday activities that no authority would ever think to ban. You walk home as dawn breaks, exhausted, but with your mind buzzing. Modern education suddenly seems strangely inefficient, focusing so much on writing and reading rather than these powerful memory techniques that kept knowledge alive for centuries without a single page. Your parents are still awake, waiting by the fire. You've seen the remembering, your father says. It's not a question. I never knew, you admit. All these years, and I never realized what was happening in those songs, those games. Your mother just smiles. That's partly the point. The knowledge hides in joy, in community. Precious things that are worth knowing are worth making beautiful. You think about modern survival preppers, stockpiling books that might never even be read. How different that is from this approach, storing critical knowledge where it's most useful, in human minds ready to be applied at a moment's notice. That night, drifting towards sleep despite the morning sun, you reflect on everything you've learned. The fire preservation, the living hedges, the smoke chambers, the clay technologies, the waterproofing, the sound navigation, each one sophisticated in its own right. But the memory network that preserved them all, that was the ultimate resilient information system. It's not primitive at all. It's perhaps the most advanced technology of all, just not in a form that we modern people would recognize as technology. Medieval knowledge networks weren't just simple oral traditions. They were the original cloud storage, distributed, redundant, and remarkably resilient. Days pass in a blur after the remembering. Winter tightens its grip on the village, bringing short days and long, long nights. The knowledge you've gained over these past weeks shifts from abstract learning to a daily necessity as the harshest season of the year takes hold. You rise before dawn, carefully transferring an ember from your fire bundle to kindle the morning fire. The technique Master Wulfik taught you now feels as natural as breathing. No more struggling with flint and steel in the freezing darkness. No more wasted time or precious tinder. Just reliable flame exactly when you need it. Your father's boots, treated with Goodwife Marta's waterproofing, keep his feet dry despite the snow and the slush. When a small crack appears in the right heel, you confidently warm a small amount of the mixture she gave you between your palms, and you work it into the leather with the friction technique she taught you. The repair holds perfectly against the winter wet. Food stores remain fresh for longer than they did in previous years, now that your family understands the principles of smoke preservation. The techniques Goodwife Ethelwald demonstrated have become a part of your household's regular practice. Even the humble herbs hanging from your ceiling rafters last longer and are preserved better now that they've been properly smoke-cured. Your mother uses one of Mistress Hildegard's cooling amphoras to keep milk fresh for an extra day, and that's no small thing when the winter limits the cow's production. At night, clay heat batteries warm your sleeping area, reducing the need for constant fire maintenance. When your young cousin falls ill with a winter fever, you recognize the specific birch bark treatment that's needed. It's knowledge from the children's singing game at the remembering. The information was there all along, you realize, hidden in play, in songs, in community ritual. One particularly bitter morning, Master Wulfik finds you helping to repair a section of the living hedge that was damaged by heavy snow. Your training continues well, he observes, watching you carefully bend a young hawthorn into the horizontal position that Mistress Edith taught you. You're becoming a keeper of systems. I still have so much to learn, you admit, securing the bent stem with practiced movements. Always, he agrees. But you understand the principle now. You see how all these systems work together rather than separately. You pause in your work, considering his words. He's right. The past weeks have revealed not just individual survival techniques, but how they're all interconnected, how each one supports and enhances all the others. The living hedge provides materials for the baskets that store the smoke-preserved foods. The hedge also shelters certain birds that control the insects that would otherwise damage the grain. That same grain, properly stored in clay preservation vessels, feeds the village through the winter, providing the strength for the hedge maintenance and the waterproofing work. Nothing stands alone. Everything connects. Come, Master Wolfic says, interrupting your thoughts. There's someone you should meet. He leads you away from the village, following a path you've never taken before. The frozen landscape glitters under the weak winter sunlight as you climb a gentle slope toward what appears to be a small, well-maintained hut, set apart from all the other dwellings. Who lives here? Uhtred, the memory keeper, Master Wolfic answers with an unexpected reverence. Our eldest, our wisest. She rarely joins the village gatherings anymore. Her strength is preserved for more important work. You approach the solitary dwelling with a growing curiosity. Smoke is rising from its chimney, and the path to its door is freshly cleared of snow, despite its isolated location. Master Wolfic knocks gently. The door opens to reveal a woman so ancient her face resembles weathered parchment, etched with countless lines of experience. Despite her apparent age, her eyes remain sharp, and they take your measure with a single glance. "This is the new apprentice?" she asks, her voice surprisingly strong. "He is," Master Wolfic confirms. "He's learned the 7 systems." She just nods once, then steps aside. "Come in then. The cold does my old bones no favors." The interior of her hut strikes you immediately as different from all the other village dwellings. Every wall holds shelves that are lined with objects. Stones of unusual shapes, bundles of herbs tied with colored thread, small carved figures, clay tokens painted with symbols. A large loom dominates one corner with weaving patterns more complex than any you've ever seen before. The old woman settles into a chair near the fire, gesturing for you both to sit. "So," she says without any preamble, "you've learned about firekeeping, living barriers, smoke preservation, clay vessels, waterproofing, sound navigation, and the memory networks." "Yes, mistress," you answer, surprised at her directness. "But do you understand what truly made them work?" she asks, studying your face. You hesitate, uncertain what answer she's looking for. "Integration," she says before you can respond. These weren't separate skills. They were one seamless approach to life. Nothing wasted, everything with multiple purposes, systems working together rather than in isolation. She reaches for a wooden cup, sipping what smells like herbal tea before she continues. "Today you have, what do they call them?" She glances at Master Wolfic. "Specialists," he supplies. "Yes, specialists," she says the word as if it tastes strange. "One person who knows only farming, another who knows only building, another who only knows healing. Knowledge all broken into tiny little fragments, each person holding just one piece." You think about modern society where indeed most people specialize so deeply in such narrow fields. How different that is from what you've witnessed here, where the boundaries of knowledge just blur and overlap. "Our ancestors couldn't afford such a luxury," she continues. "The farmer needed to be part healer, part builder, part preserver. The hunter needed to understand plants as well as animals. Everyone needed to grasp how one system affected another." Master Wolfic nods in agreement. "The modern world calls this primitive. We call it wholeness." "Show me what you've learned," the old woman says suddenly, fixing you with her penetrating gaze. Not just the techniques, but the connections between them. Put on the spot, you gather your thoughts. The fire bundle system preserves the flame for the smoker, which preserves the food for the village, which provides the strength for maintaining the living hedge, which in turn provides materials and protection. You continue tracing the connections between all the systems, how the clay vessels store what the smoke preserves, how the waterproofing protects what the other systems create, how sound navigation ensures safe passage between communities, allowing for the exchange of knowledge. The memory keeper listens intently, nodding occasionally. When you finish, she seems satisfied. You're beginning to see, she says, not 7 separate systems, but one integrated approach to life. She rises with a surprising agility for her age, moving to a large wooden chest near her bed. From it, she removes a small leather-bound book, a startlingly incongruous object in this world of oral tradition. "Can you read?" she asks. You just nod, somewhat surprised by the question. Good. Few can. She hands you the book. This contains diagrams, recipes, and measurements for all the systems you've learned. It was written by my grandmother's grandmother, and it's been added to by each generation. You accept the book with reverence, understanding its immense value in a world where written records are so rare. "Why are you showing me this?" you ask. "I thought the memory networks preserved the knowledge without writing." She smiles slightly. "Redundancy, child. The same knowledge exists in multiple forms. The memory network is primary. It lives, it adapts. It cannot be destroyed by a single fire or a flood. But this," she taps the book, "provides precision when it's needed. Exact measurements, specific proportions," Master Wolfick adds. The two approaches complement each other. Memory for resilience and writing for precision. You carefully open the ancient book. Inside, delicate drawings illustrate the hedge-laying techniques, the fire bundle construction, the clay vessel designs. There are marginalia notes and refinements that have been added over generations. This contains the collective wisdom of 15 generations, the memory keeper says quietly. Not just how to do things, but why they work, the principles behind the practices. You realize you're holding something that's beyond value, a medieval technical manual preserving knowledge that modern society has largely forgotten. "You may study it here under my guidance," she continues, "not to memorize it by rote, but to understand the thinking of those who developed these systems." The rest of the day passes in quiet study. The memory keeper explains the diagrams, she answers your questions, she connects the techniques to the principles. Master Wolfick occasionally adds insights from his own experience. The winter sun traces its short arc across the sky and begins to set while you absorb knowledge that is both ancient and startlingly relevant. As twilight approaches, the memory keeper closes the book and returns it carefully to its chest. "You asked earlier why I showed you this," she says, settling again by the fire. The answer is simple. Someone must remember. Her gaze fixes on the flames. A time may come when these systems are forgotten, when people believe there is only one way to live, dependent on mechanisms that they don't understand and can't repair. You think about your own modern world, so technologically advanced, and yet so vulnerable to disruption. How many people know how to preserve food without refrigeration, how to find their direction without GPS, how to waterproof something without synthetic chemicals? Our ancestors weren't just surviving despite their limitations, the memory keeper says, echoing your thoughts. In many ways, they were thriving because of them. Her words strike you deeply. The constraints of medieval life forced an innovation within natural boundaries, working with the materials at hand, developing systems that could be maintained locally, creating technologies that lasted for generations rather than just years. The most powerful medieval survival technique wasn't any specific skill, Master Wolfick adds. It was their integrated approach to life. As darkness falls completely, you make your preparations to leave. The memory keeper rises once more, this time retrieving a small object from among her collected treasures. It's a polished stone pendant on a simple leather cord. "For the new keeper," she says, placing it in your hand. A memory anchor. When you touch it, remember what you've learned. Not just the methods, but the mindset. You slip the cord over your head, feeling the smooth stone warm up against your skin. Something about its weight feels significant, as if you're accepting a tradition that extends back through countless generations. Walking home through the winter night, Master Wolfik is unusually talkative. Each generation thinks itself the pinnacle of progress, he muses. Each one believes the previous generations were primitive, simple-minded. It's a conceit that's as old as humanity itself. The stars overhead seem especially bright against the black winter sky. They're the same stars your ancestors navigated by, told stories about, used to time their planting and their harvesting. The greatest survival lesson, Master Wolfik continues, is humility. The willingness to learn from those we've been taught to view as primitive. At home, your family has already retired for the night. You kindle a small flame from your fire bundle, lighting a rush dip to navigate the dark interior. The humble light casts moving shadows across the familiar space, a space that somehow looks different now that you understand the systems that maintain it. Your sleeping area is waiting, a clay heat battery already warming the blankets. Your mother's thoughtfulness. As you settle in, the pendant rests against your chest, a physical reminder of your journey through medieval knowledge. Sleep comes gently, carrying you through the boundary between your medieval experience and your modern reality. The pendant seems to fade away, but the knowledge, that remains. Back in your comfortable modern bed, you find yourself thinking differently about the systems that support your daily life. The electric light you switch off without a thought. The central heating that maintains the perfect temperature without any effort. The refrigerator humming in the kitchen, the smartphone charging on your nightstand. Convenience, certainly. But also dependence, vulnerability. If those systems failed, how many people would know the alternatives? How many could create fire without matches or lighters? How many could preserve food without refrigeration? How many could navigate without GPS or even a paper map? The medieval villagers you've come to know would view our modern world with awe, certainly, but perhaps also with a bit of concern at how completely we've outsourced our basic survival skills to systems we neither understand nor can repair. Their village wasn't just surviving despite its limitations. In many ways, it was thriving because of them. The constraints forced innovation, cooperation, and a deep understanding of natural processes that many of us have lost. The most sophisticated aspect of medieval survival wasn't any particular technique, as impressive as each one was. It was the integrated approach to life, where nothing was wasted, where everything had multiple purposes, and where all the systems worked in harmony rather than in isolation. This wasn't primitive thinking, it was systems thinking at its most sophisticated. So perhaps the question isn't whether these medieval techniques still work. They do. The real question is whether we're humble enough to learn from those we've been taught to view as primitive. Because in a world of increasing uncertainty, with climate change, energy concerns, and supply chain fragility, the most dangerous thing might just be our modern arrogance, the belief that we've outgrown the wisdom of those who thrived without any of the systems we now depend on. As you drift off to sleep in your comfortable modern bed, the boundary between the past and the present blurs. The knowledge you've gained feels like a bridge between two worlds. It's ancient wisdom with a startling relevance for contemporary challenges. The fire bundle's elegant simplicity, the living hedge's multifunctional design, the smoke preservation's chemistry, the clay vessel's thermal engineering, the waterproofing's material science, the sound navigation's sensory awareness, and the memory network's information technology. None of them were primitive. They were all sophisticated adaptations to their time and place. They all worked with natural materials and processes rather than against them, and they could all be created, maintained, and passed down without any complex global supply chains or rare materials. Medieval people weren't just surviving despite their limitations. In many ways, they were thriving because of them, and that might just be the most important survival lesson of all.